Welcome to PR Connections with your host, Guy Dawson. Guy Dawson is the managing partner of Classy Communications PR and Advertising, a Las Vegas-based company, a seasoned business professional who started his first business at age 12. Guy started Classy Communications to promote positive images of businesses, nonprofits, and individuals, and to foster goodwill between his clients and the community. His firm has worked with a diverse list of clients internationally in real estate, independent films, martial arts, publishing, modeling, music, bookkeeping, network marketing, health and wellness, public safety, as well as a host of nonprofit organizations. Now, let's make some PR connections. Here's your host, Guy Dawson.
Oh, we are going to grow your mind and energy today with a presentation. I have a friend of mine who has been a part of an organization that I am very proud to be a member of, and it is called the Global Information Network. His name is John Calabrese, and he and I have been studying some amazing information over the last couple of years. There have been several other guests that we've had. As a matter of fact, Rebecca Anselmo last week was talking about Ignite Your Inner Genie. She's also a member of that organization. We've had Mary Miller, an energetic healer, and just a host of people over the last couple of years who have been in the studio to share some concepts that are very similar to what John Calabrese is going to be speaking to you about today. John Calabrese is a master level 7 black belt, a speaker, an author, and an entrepreneur. He has more than 30 years of experience in teaching people martial arts and mind energy. Several years ago, John became a sanctioned speaker with the Global Information Network, as I was talking to you about a few minutes ago. It is a private organization that teaches success principles and the use of the law of attraction. John has got a book out that he recently released. He and I have been working together on some of the promotion of it. It is called You Are the Common Denominator in Your Life, and he is calling in from Boston, Massachusetts. John Calabrese, my friend and mentor, welcome to the PR Connections radio show.
Hi, Guy. Thanks for having me on your show.
And, John, I've been working with you on this book that you've released recently. It is called, again, You Are the Common Denominator in Your Life. What motivated you to create that book, and what is it all about?
Well, it's really about you. It's about you need to be constantly making a constantly improved version of you. You know, I explore 10 different concepts that you can look at and just evaluate to see how you're doing with them. You know, you can see what areas that you might want to improve in, and there might be some areas that you never even really considered before. And you know, with the title of the book, You Are the Common Denominator in Your Life, I mean, if you kind of put it into an equation and you said you plus your relationships equal a result, you plus your job performance equals a result, or you plus your goals equal a result, you know, you're the common denominator in each of those equations. You know, a championship team is always looking for ways to improve. They never get complacent, or they don't stay champions. And so it's just really written to, you know, give people things to look at and really explore within themselves and see if there's areas in their life that they can improve.
I talked a little bit about your background as a martial artist, and that you've been teaching people for many, many years, as well as being an entrepreneur. But I know that teaching is your true passion. Will you share with us a little bit about how you have gotten started? What's your background?
Well, I started martial arts when I was 16 years old. And what was funny is I went in there and I was, you know, I was not coordinated at all. I had no flexibility. You know, I just really didn't look like a good candidate that was going to go to the places that I've gone with martial arts. But I actually applied a lot of the principles that I'm talking about in the book to actually get to the place that I'm at now. And, you know, it just requires constant work on yourself.
Yes, it was, you know, I did an edit, which is a very interesting way to read a book. I mean, when you're actually doing the edit, looking for all the grammar, sentence structure, you get a lot out of a book. And as I was working and doing the reading of You Are the Common Denominator in Your Life, I was just thinking of what were the things in your past that inspired you to to probably shift your thinking, because so many of the ideas that you expressed in this book are not common to most people. They're usually ideas that a person has evolved into developing. What inspired you to create this book?
Well, as far as some of the subjects that are in there, like I said, they're things that I used, to get to where I'm at. And I was introduced to a lot of different concepts that maybe are a little bit more known now, but they weren't so well known back then. When I was in the early 80s and I was learning about chi energy. And people did not really accept that as real at that point. Now everyone, with acupuncture, acupressure, yoga, and all the different modalities that utilize chi energy, now it's very accepted. But back then, that wasn't the case. That was a little fringe. And so, a lot of the subjects that are discussed, some of them, I'm sure we'll go into some of the different subject matter, for the book, but it definitely was something that I felt was important for people to look at. I'm a teacher, that's what I do, and teaching is really my passion because I just love to share things and help people. And in writing this book, it gave me a way to affect more people in a positive way. In teaching martial arts, it allows me to teach and train people to reach their full potential. But now writing books and speaking to audiences, it really allows me to broaden what I'm doing. It provides me an opportunity to help a wider range of people. And I think that most of the information in the book is really just what I've been talking about for years as I teach. And so now I just put it on paper so that it's more accessible to a lot more people. And I think that, me personally, just even by focusing on the information, in writing the book and putting it all together and going through the whole process, it allows me to internalize it even better. And so this is really just an extension of what I've been doing.
One of the things that I really have enjoyed about reading this book is how simple the concepts are. Simplicity works really well for a lot of people. And one of the concepts that you talked about that I have a wholehearted belief in is the power of your words. Maybe you'll want to touch a little bit on why what you say is so important.
Well, your words are your thoughts clarified and amplified. Your words can do something as obvious as communicate information. They can, if you were to not be mindful of what you're saying, you might offend someone or you might praise someone. It's going to have an effect on other people. But I think where the real effect comes in, that's not so obvious, is how it affects you. And the words you're saying, you have to remember your brain's like a computer, and it only knows what you put into it. So if you are programming your brain with beliefs by what you're saying. And that's why I feel that self-deprivation deprecation is so harmful. And there's a Chinese philosopher from way back, Lao Tzu, and he said something that was really profound. He said, "Be careful of your thoughts because they become your words, and your words will become your actions, and your actions will become your habits. Your habits will become your character, and your character is your destiny." And I think that's really significant because it just shows the whole pattern of how all of that works and where it leads. It's one of those things where, a lot of times people will speak very negatively. Even if it's just complaining about the weather or complaining about traffic. But the more you focus on something negative, you're going to get negative. If you're focusing on positive things, then you're going to get positive things. And I think it's just really critical that you think about what you're saying because those words do have an effect on your life. They're basically a self-fulfilling prophecy. And, what you say is what you get, so what are you really asking for?
I know the things that you utter have so much power, and it's so simple that it's easy to miss that idea. I'm going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, there are some other concepts in this book that I think the listeners will be really interested in hearing, and we'll be back in a few minutes, John. John Calabrese is the author of You Are the Common Denominator in Your Life. He's talking about his book and experience as a teacher, entrepreneur, and we're looking forward to hearing more little excerpts from his book. We'll see you all in a few minutes. I've been speaking with John Calabrese. He is the author of You Are the Common Denominator in Your Life, and a good friend of mine. I went on some pretty cool vacations with John. John, first time we were on a cruise, right? I think that's the first vacation that we took together.
Went to the Bahamas.
Yeah, we were wasn't that there's nothing like being on a cruise with a lot of people who are very focused on success. It was just an amazing experience. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and I know that you understand this concept very well, is persistence. And it's something that I believe anyone who wants to achieve anything in life must be very persistent in the pursuit of it. You talk about it in your book, and maybe you'd like to share with the listeners your thoughts on persistence.
Sure. Persistence, this was probably my favorite chapter as well, because it really is critical in achieving any substantial success in life. I call it your desires on fire, because you really have to be passionately pursuing something to utilize persistence and just keep going after what it is that you want. Because we're all going to face challenges, on our way to what it is that we want. It's whether or not we face them and conquer them or not, which is really the deciding factor in whether you achieve what you want. My own personal story, I was saying earlier how when I first started in martial arts, and I wasn't very athletic. I really didn't seem like the person that was going to reach a 7th degree black belt and co-found a martial arts organization called Body Mind Systems with several other masters. So that's a pretty significant achievement coming from where I really was, but the persistence that it required. I would go to class every day. I never missed. When I got out of high school, I actually took a job working a midnight shift so that I could train from when the school opened until when it closed. So it was an extreme effort in order to get what I wanted, but it didn't feel like an effort because, it's what I was saying earlier. It was my desire. It's what I really wanted, and it's not work when you really love what you're doing. And every time you look in history, look at Michael Jordan. He got cut from the high school basketball team and what he was able to do. Babe Ruth, although he holds the record for the most home runs, he also has the most strikeouts. Well, his record was broken by Mickey Mantle on the strikeouts. And even Abraham Lincoln, he failed in business at 21. His girlfriend died, followed by he had a nervous breakdown, lost 8 elections, all on his way to. So you can see where extraordinary effort and just that persistence, that just never giving up, you'll eventually get where you want to go. You just have to just not stop. And, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have temporary failures or run into obstacles on your way to what you want, but I think Richard Branson put it in a really interesting way. He said, if you're not making mistakes and having failures, then you're just not trying hard enough. So I just really think that persistence is that one quality that makes the difference between achieving something and not achieving it.
It's a very common theme of guests who have come through this show who have achieved a lot of things, is that they've basically struck out the most. Like you were talking about, Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle. They've been willing to continue to keep going and going and going and going. Steve Smith, he was the man who started Excel. It's a big telecommunications company. He was on the show about a year and a half ago, and I just remember that theme as he says, the only difference I've seen between people who make it and don't are that the people who make it just refuse to quit. And that goes right along the lines of what you're talking about with persistence. I know you're passionate about this information, and the book definitely reflects the strong feelings that you have about it. Why do you think it is so important for people out there to read a book like You Are the Common Denominator?
Well, I think people need to constantly improve, and you need to find tools. You need to find insights. You need to find things that, really can give you a view, because, the hardest thing to see is the thing that's closest to you, and there's nothing closer to you than you. So it's really hard to get a good view, and so you don't really even necessarily know what it is that you need to improve. And I think by looking at different concepts and really evaluating, taking a few minutes to think about it and see if that's something that maybe you could, stand to improve a little bit on, and not just be complacent with where you're at, because you're not going to go anywhere that way.
And one thing I know is that just like any other overachiever, you're already in the process of writing another book. Maybe you'd like to share with us what that'll be like.
Well, it's going to be a similar format. Just like I wrote this book, I wrote it to be it's a short but concise book. So it's all good information. There's not any fluff in it. But that's so that you're able to read it over and over again, so you can actually start internalizing some of the information. And I think that's really a critical thing. Or you read it, even if you read it 6 months later, things have changed and you might have a different perspective. And so this next book is going to have 10 more points, just like I had in this one. And, again, things to consider, things to look at within yourself. And there's some pretty interesting subjects in there. What's the difference between a choice and a decision is a tremendous difference. And so that's one of the chapters in there. I'll also discuss, everything. This is a kind of a phrase that I coined. Everything's a gift or a lesson, but actually they're all gifts. But sometimes they're just too painful, so you call them a lesson. Because everything in life teaches you, so everything is a gift.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a shift in thinking when you shift from thinking that something is not working well to taking a look at it as a gift. Man, it makes the sailing a lot smoother when you're striving to achieve something, knowing that it's just a part of the process.
Yeah, and so there's some of the subjects are very easy to grasp, and I've tried to slip in more, a little deeper of a concept. And, again, so the book is really designed for someone that maybe doesn't have any understanding of what I'm talking about. They can understand it. If somebody has a pretty good handle on it, there's still really good insights within that's going to allow them to be able to expand their understanding of it.
In the Global Information Network, one of the principles that we study very early on is who do you listen to? It kind of relates to the mentors that you have in the life and in your life, and the people you learn information from. Who are mentors in your life?
Well, I have several masters around me that are very influential. I have some of the same. It's funny, when I started training in martial arts, I was training with a group of instructors. Well, they were students at the time, and now they're all masters. It was just this little group of us that just came up and just went. And so they probably have the biggest influence on me. And, it's really nice to have that type of community. I've also have learned from a number of different teachers through the Global Information Network. I mean, learning from Kevin Trudeau, Troy McClain, Joel Bauer, Mary Miller. There are a lot of teachers in there that, give me a lot of information. So it's, I'm always on a quest for learning more on any subject. I mean, going through etiquette training with the Post family. I mean, that was really, really interesting and I think beneficial. And learning from Ron Ball. I mean, there's just so many different teachers that I've had an opportunity to learn what it is that they do and learn their information. And I think that really helps when you have that really well-rounded education on things that you can utilize in life.
You Are the Common Denominator in Your Life is packed with a lot of good basic information that will begin to change your thinking about yourself. When I was talking to you a day or so ago, I was saying that it reminds me a lot of The Secret, in that it gives you an introduction in a very simple format to some pretty sophisticated concepts. And there's also that mixture of concepts that someone who has been around this way of thinking for quite a while will be able to understand. How can people purchase a book or learn more about the teaching services you offer? I also know that you are a keynote speaker. Where can they go to learn more about what you do?
Well, they can go to growthisadecision.com. And then they could also email me at john@growthisadecision.com.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you want to talk really quickly about the event that you're putting on, if anybody's out in the Boston area over the weekend.
Well, on Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon, I'm going to be giving a presentation on the book and going through I'm going to go through all 10 chapters, just touching on each point and a point on each of the chapters. Also have Arlene Tessman. She's there. She'll be discussing from your guest last week, Rebecca Alfamo. She's her book Ignite Your Inner Genie. So we'll be talking about that as well. It's going to be at the Boston Marriott in Burlington, Massachusetts. And then it's from 10 a.m. to noon. And and there's more information on that at the website growthisadecision.com, and that'll have more details on the event.
John Calabrese is the author of You Are the Common Denominator in Your Life, and a friend of mine from Jen, and I just really appreciate finally getting the opportunity to have you be a part of the PR Connection show.